Hello everyone, I am Saurabh and welcome to the video number 3 of Basics of IoT. In this video, we will start building our embedded system. So first we need to figure out how we can exchange data between Node MCU and our database. So for this we are going to use an API. So API stands for Application Programming Interface. So this will provide us with the interface that is required to exchange the data between both these entities. So if we go on the documentations page of Firebase under the API references, we see a lot of APIs that are available. One is for Android, one is for iOS, one is a web reference. So this is the one that we are going to use for our application UI. But there is no reference available for embedded C or Node MCU. So for this we will use the REST API, the option you can find on the left hand side. So for this we need to understand what is REST API. So REST stands for representational state transfer. So REST uses simple HTTP protocols or HTTP calls to exchange data. So to understand how HTTP calls or HTTP protocol works, we first need to understand what are the different layers of network. So these are the different network layers. The first is the network interfaces or the data link layer. Next is internet protocol, which is the network layer. Then there is the TCP or the transport layer. And finally there is HTTP layer or the application layer. Network interfaces is nothing but how your PC and your router is connected to one another. It can be wireless or wired. Then at the internet protocol layer, the data flow is managed. So even if there are multiple PCs that are connected to a single router, the data will always flow to its respective machine. The data never gets mixed up. So all the data flow and data control is managed at the IP level. Then at the TCP level, the data packets are framed and they are sent from client to server, and error checking mechanisms are applied here as well so that the data goes error free. So in our case, we are going to use a TCP client on the Node MCU to establish a connection between the Node MCU and the real-time database. So let's understand TCP a bit more. So TCP stands for Transmission Control Protocol. So here is an example. Let's say we have two remote locations. One is in India and other one is in the US. So here there is just one computer that is connected to the router, and then the router is connected to the internet. And here we have two PCs that are connected to a router, and the router is connected to the internet. So we can say that this PC is connected to both of these PCs indirectly through the internet. So that's why if you see carefully, this PC and this PC have the same IP addresses. Now that is because the IP addresses that are shown are local or internal IP addresses. So here you can see the PC that is on the top has 0.19 and this one has 0.18. But if you see, the IP addresses inside the local area or inside the local network are unique. So even if we attach more two PCs to this router, all the four will have different IP addresses or unique IP addresses. But as these two locations are connected indirectly, they can have similar IP addresses. So say if this PC wants to acquire data from this PC, then this becomes the client and this becomes the server. So still the question remains how the TCP connection will be established if both of them have same IP addresses. Then the answer is that all the networks or all the ISPs assign a public IP address to the router. So this is called as the public or the external IP address. If you search what is my IP on Google, you get to see your external IP or public IP address. So what you can do is you can establish a TCP connection with the public IP address of the remote router. So here it is 117.67.30.16. but still, how do you specify which server you want to access? So that is done by the ports or the network ports. So basically, a TCP connection is established on the basis of IP and the port, not just the IP. So now the client can say that I want data from this IP address and this port number to specify the final location. So now that we know how TCP works, let's take a look at the HTTP protocol layer or the application layer. HTTP layer is nothing but a TCP client and server connected to one another and exchanging a plain text data which is in a specific format. So this is a format for an HTTP GET request. So basically there are different types of HTTP requests. So the first type of HTTP request is the GET request. This is how the GET request packet looks like. The first line is the request line and the second line is the headers or the header. So when we try to access google.com, this type of GET request packet is generated. The browser usually attaches more headers one below the other, but this is just an example. So like I said, a TCP connection requires an IP and a port, but here there is no IP nor a port. So how does the browser still access the website, right? So what happens is that the client first connects to a DNS server. So a DNS server is nothing but a domain name system server. So we won't look too much into the details of DNS server, but in simple words, what happens is the client asks the DNS server that he wants the IP for google.com, and then the DNS server does a forward lookup and sends back the IP of Google. Now for the port part, some ports are already specified, that is HTTP has port number 80, HTTPS has port number 443, and FTP has port number 21. So once the DNS server sends back an IP address, the TCP connection is established and the Google website can be loaded from the response. So say if you want to access a subdirectory, say google.com/home, then you can see the GET request gets modified like this. So whatever path is there after the host name is added to the GET request so that the server knows which directory to access and which data to fetch. So you can see /home is added here. Now you might have seen these types of links as well of YouTube. So here the directory is watched and the question mark represents a query. So query also has key value pair. So here the key is v and its value is this id. So what this means is that from the watch directory it is telling YouTube to send the video which has this id. So by this different videos are loaded on our browser. So if we have multiple queries, say this is one query or one key value pair and this is another key value pair, so they are separated using an ampersand, and all the things that are after the host are added or attached in the GET request. So the next is the POST request. So this is an example of a POST request. POST requests are usually used to send data to the server. Like GET request fetches data from the server, POST requests are used to send data to the server. So similarly, this is the first line called as the request line. So it has post and just a slash. So we want to post data on the root directory. So we can add the content type. So this is text/plain, as we are adding just plain text. So then we have to specify the content length. We have specified 5 here. So all these are headers. Then there is a blank line to separate the header and the message body. So the put request looks completely similar to the post request, just the header or the request line changes to put. Now how to act on a post or a put request is decided by the server end software or the service which is running on the server. Now patch request is also similar to post and put request. just the request line changes to patch, but the functionality depends on the server. Then finally there is a delete request. So this is similar to the get request. So if we want to send the server a command that we want to delete a root directory, we can use this request. But it again depends if the server accepts such types of requests or not. So as REST API uses HTTP protocol, it becomes much more universal, as any device or any system that has the facility of a TCP socket can use a REST API to implement the softwares or the applications that are available at the web service end. So now let's take a look at the documentation of the REST API so that we can use our Node MCU to send data and also retrieve data from the real-time database. So here you can see the database that we created last time. So on the top right corner, there is an option to open the documentation. Then we open the reference tab. Then on the left hand side, there is a REST API tab. And then we click on the real-time database. So now the documentation for the real-time database and REST API opens up. So one thing to note here is that this API uses an HTTPS protocol, not just HTTP. So basically this is a secured HTTP protocol. So the network layers which we saw a few minutes back, another layer to it gets added, which is the security layer. So we'll see about that in a few minutes. So this is a really good documentation created by Google. So you can go through it. We are going to implement the get request for reading data and the put request for writing data. So if you see carefully, they are using CURL. So CURL is a command line tool which generates or creates all types of HTTP requests for testing such APIs. But in our case, we will be using reqbin.com. So it is an online tool to generate similar requests. So in the documentation, what they have told is that if we want to fetch data of a particular node, say I want data for ID01, then we just have to copy the URL or specify the URL of the node. So the first part here is our database's URL, then users is the first node, inside it is ID01. So because I want data from ID01, I will copy the URL. So we are going to paste the URL here, and we just have to attach .json as the extension of the URL, and then we send a get request. So after sending a get request, you can see the response, that is the JSON object of ID01 gets downloaded. So if you see the raw request, the get request looks something like this. And if you see the raw response, this is how the response looks like. So in the previous slides, we have seen how an HTTP request looks like. So this is how HTTP response looks like. So the line 1 indicates the status of the request. So we got 200 and OK. So you can see status OK, it shows. And then all the other headers are shown here. And finally, after one line spacing, the content that was sent back from the server is shown. So if you see, the content of ID01 here and here matches, just this is in the JSON format. Okay, so now what we'll do is we will create a node inside the user. So for that, what we have to do is we have to specify the path. So inside the users, I want ID02, ID02.json. Now we have to select the put request for inserting data inside a node. Now go in the content tab to add the data. So we will create a JSON. So inside the JSON, we will add age. So the key is always a string. So let's create a bit different data this time. Okay, so this is our JSON object. Now once we click on send, you can see the ID02 gets added here, and as a response we again get the same object or the JSON object which we had added. You can see the raw packet as well. So now you might say this is quite insecure, or Firebase is quite insecure. Like if someone gets hands on the URL of our database, anyone can access our data or delete our data, but that is not the actual case. So if we come to our database and under the rules tab, if we see, we have read and write permissions, and there is some conditions which has been attached here. So basically what this means is that if the current date, so now means current date and time in milliseconds, if it is less than this timestamp, so this is a timestamp, so let's convert this timestamp into a date. So we'll use an epoch converter. So the timestamp reads as June 9 2020 on 5:45 am. So basically if the current date and time is before this timestamp, then the read gets a true value attached. So if we make this false and publish, and now we'll try to read data from our database. Let's read ID02. So for reading, we just create a GET request and no content is required to be added. So we create a basic GET request and send it. So now you can see, if you see the response, error permission denied, and you can see here the status also changed to 401 unauthorized. You can see 401 unauthorized. So now how to access the data after we have set the permission to false is, you have to pass the authentication key or the database secret while accessing the API. So what you do is you add a query and you write the key as auth equals to, and now the value is our database secret. So where to find the database secret is in our project settings. Now inside project settings, click on service accounts. Under there you will find the database secrets option. Now here you will see your database secret. Click on show, and then you will just copy the secret and paste it in front of the auth value or the auth key. So basically auth equals to your secret, and then we will click on send. Now you won't get permission not denied error. You will get the content of the 02 ID. So now let's delete an already added key. Say we want to delete ID02. So what we do is we go to content, we clear all the content. Now instead of get request, we select a delete request, and we make sure that the path is id02.json. So basically id02 should get deleted, and once I send the request, id02 gets deleted, and a response 200 okay is sent, and the content is null as we have deleted a key. So you can see this is the response. So now let's quickly understand what is HTTPS. So these are the network layers that we saw previously. So the security layer is between TCP and HTTP. So it uses SSL or TLS. So once the TCP client and server are connected, the client will first ask the server for his certificate, so that we know that the server which we are connecting to is a valid server. And then after the certificate is verified, all the data that flows on the HTTP layer is encrypted, so it isn't readable until it reaches the client. So it is encrypted, sent back, and then it gets decrypted. So now that we have seen how HTTP requests work with the REST API, let's set up our Arduino IDE for ESP8266 boards and write a small code to connect our Node MCU to the Firebase real-time database. So to set up our IDE, we first go to File and click on Preferences. Then here we will see Additional Board Manager URLs. Click on this button. Then we add the URL to the ESP8266 boards. I will put this URL in the description. So after adding the URL, we click on Tools and then go to the board manager. Here we search for ESP8266 and then we will find ESP8266 by ESP8266 community, and we click on Install button. So once all the boards are added, we can start creating programs for ESP8266 boards. So as this has already become a long video, what we'll do is in the next video we will write the code to connect our Node MCU to the real-time database, and we'll also implement the RFID sensor with it. So we will first understand how the RFID sensor works, and then we'll connect it to the Node MCU and send its data to the real-time database. So thanks for watching this video. If you found it useful, please like the video. If you have any opinions or doubts, you can leave a comment. And if you want to see more videos in this series, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon.